So you decide that you're going to learn to play the piano. You go to your first lesson, and this is usually what happens. The teacher gives you some basics on how to sit and your finger numbers, and then you get a book, and the teacher says, oh, this is middle C. This is middle C right here, okay? And that's D, and that's E, okay? And then you might learn your left hand, like, oh, C, and then B, and A as well. And you're kind of stuck here for a while. You're stuck here mainly because reading takes long time. So teachers like me have realized that to teach students technique from the beginning, we have to use mediums other than the reading material. Because when you're focused on the reading, really your brain is so like engaged with the process of reading that you can't really think about like what is going on with your body. What is technique? Technique in any kind of movement that's like sports and also performing arts and playing the piano basically refers to your body mechanic. You use your body to engage with your instrument to produce certain type of sounds. And depending on the kind of technique you use, you're able to produce different colors of sounds. And that's what's, really exciting about music when we start talking about not just the notes, but the colors of the notes. And also it's about agility and playability. When you use the right technique, you can play effortlessly and for a long time. You can play faster, you can play more powerfully without getting tired, and more importantly, without hurting yourself. The challenge of talking about technique is that everybody has different body, right? Your height, the length of your arm, length of your torso, your fingers. A women who is basically the same size as me can have very different kind of hand and finger structure, and that affects our playing. So without meeting you one-on-one, I can't cater everything for your specific need, but there are some basic things that apply to everyone. As we talk about technique and as I show you and guide you, if you ever feel pain, please stop. Piano is not one of those things where it's like no pain, no gain. The pain should be like here because you're thinking so hard and listening so hard and focusing so hard. You should never play with pain in your arms, in your hands, your wrist, even your back. You don't play piano with your back, but you do. You play the piano with your whole body. So if you're experiencing pain, please stop, please walk around, and then re-engage. Another thing to remember is that piano technique has evolved over hundreds of years, and people disagree on what is the best or correct technique. So my own philosophy of technique has evolved and changed over time. And what changed my view more than anything is from teaching. I would study different techniques and try it on my students. And I realized that there are certain techniques that just apply to everyone, and it unlocks their playing. So this is my point of view based on my experience and my research. You can disagree with me. And hey, this is the kind of thing that piano pedagogues and piano professors, they go on a conference and they are, talking about these kind of things for hours and hours. So I don't claim to be the expert in this area, but I think I can help you. Hi, this is Kristina. If you haven't subscribed to this channel yet, I would love for you to subscribe. And if you like my teaching, please check out my course, Simple and Beautiful Piano for Adult Beginners. The first part of technique is sitting. If you haven't watched my short video on posture, find it and you can watch that. And that just basically talks about your sitting position. So I won't go into that today. But the gist of that is that you set yourself up for the maximum playability. What does that mean? That means you're not too low or too high, and you're not too close or too far. You want to have access to all the keys on the keyboard. Many beginners like to sit very close like this, and they get closer and closer because they are like focusing on reading music, and they end up playing very constrained, and we don't want that. And as I said earlier in the video, that's why I'm not going to use a reading material to work on technique. Today we're going to use actually our 5-finger scales, which I talked about several months ago. And I'm going to put the video and the resource from that video in the description below. So you can have it and you should watch it, because I'm going to use that to work on the technique today. So sitting optimally sets you up for a 3-dimensional playing. What is 3-dimensional playing? 3-dimensional playing means that your hands are moving 3-dimensionally. You're going up and down. And of course, if you've seen pianists play, you can tell that they're going up and down, especially when they're moving around, right? But not only that, we also go in and out, okay? So this is where a lot of people have some misunderstandings, that they feel like they should be staying in certain part of the keyboard. Now, when you're playing the white keys with your thumb, your hand has to a little bit go in, okay? But when you're playing with the 3rd finger, your hand might come out like this, okay? And when you're playing, let's say this black key with your 2nd finger or 3rd finger, I'll demonstrate both. You don't just reach like that. You don't just reach like that. You go in towards the fallboard to play at the optimal place, and then to keep your hand in a certain shape, which I'm going to talk about in a bit. So that's what we mean by 3-dimensional movement. Of course, we're going, right and left as well. And that is also something that you have to also just really be aware of. When your arm is open like this, you have a different connection to your fingers versus when your arm is right in front of you. See, this is actually not the healthiest position, and it can be constraining. And one thing you can do is to actually lean a little bit backward to give more room, okay? And you can even turn your body a little bit depending on the passage. But what I'm saying is, I'm giving you the permission to move in a way that feels healthy and comfortable for you. The word is actually alignment. Basically, we want to align our fingers with our wrist, forearm, all the way to our elbow in straightish line. Of course, we are human beings. We're not that straight, all right? But straight-ish line. So, okay, this time I'm going to demonstrate with my left hand, okay? And I'm not going to put my hand here because it's going to make my hand, this is not the best position. When you're working on technique, just place your hands where it feels most natural, like comfortable and neutral. So I'm going to put my left hand here, okay? And I'm just going to use C position, all white keys. So when I play my thumb, I want to create a straighter line here. You see that? How I open my elbow a little bit? When I play my second finger, finger number 2, I want to create a straightish line here, okay? So I don't want to do that, okay? So please don't do this. You really have to watch out for this angle, okay? If you find yourself doing that, undo it, because if you do that, you're just gonna get stuck at some point. You're gonna be playing, and you're gonna be like, why is my playing not good? And it's because you're not using the right technique. Yeah, remember that. If you're practicing a lot and you find that something's not working, it's probably because you're not playing with the optimal technique. And I've seen this in my students over and over and over again. Like, they're like, I can't do this. And then I'm looking at them, assessing them, and I'm like, well, why don't you just like move your hand a little bit like this? And it's like magic. It unlocks it. Okay? That's why we're talking about technique today. Because if you're practicing, especially if you're practicing a lot, I want you to make good sound. I want you to play well. I want you to get the maximum benefit out of your time and your practice. Okay, so going back, third finger. Okay, I want to create a straighter line. Okay, and then the fourth finger. Okay, so fourth finger, you might want to do this. Don't do that. You want to create a straighter line. Okay, and then the fifth finger, yeah, again, people like to play with the palm, and when you do that, you really never develop your playability and agility. So because your finger is not supported. Okay, so you're gonna support your finger with your whole arm unit all the way to elbow, like this. So let's review. We talked about setting yourself up posturally for the three-dimensional playing, and we talked about alignment. I'm gonna just introduce one more concept today, and that's the concept of quiet hand. Quiet hand, in my course, I call it silent hand, or neutral hand, or resting hand. It just means that it's the hand that you should have when you're sleeping. Okay, when you're sleeping, you don't sleep like this. If you do, please get some therapy. You don't sleep like this. You probably your hand is just there, right? And when you're relaxed and standing, or you're just sitting and your hand is just resting on something, your hand is like this. And that's the concept of the silent, quiet, neutral, resting hand. When we play the piano, we want to try to always come back to that. We start with that and we come back to that in between. If we don't do that, you're gonna create tension. And you're gonna get tired. And you can get injured. When I started piano, I remember the very first lesson, curve your fingers and play. So quiet hand is not really a curved finger. It curves naturally because that's the neutral point, but you're not trying to curve it. Okay? It used to be that people would curve their fingers, okay, and then play with the fingertips. Okay? We don't do that anymore. I don't teach that anymore. Start with the quiet hand, okay? And to remind you, you can just shake your hand, or you can put it on your knee for a little bit, okay? And just lift and place your hand. Okay? It doesn't matter where it is. Down and place your hand, okay? And when you place your hand on the piano keys, you're gonna see that you don't put your fingertips on the keys. Your finger pads right behind your fingertips will touch the piano keys. And that's how you want to play the piano. Okay. Except for your thumb. Your thumb, you're gonna play with the corner with my left hand, the corner here. Okay, so let's put all of this together in our 5-finger scales. Okay, so let's see. I'll do my right hand. Okay, so my 1, okay, I'm here, okay, straighter line, okay, and we're gonna detach between each note. I'm gonna lift, okay, and then down, okay, and lift and then down, straighter line, lift and then down, 4 straight line. I'm gonna do a little bit fast so you can see how it looks when it's faster. But when you're doing detached note practice, I mean, it's just gonna be slower than if you're doing legato practice because there are gaps in between, right? And that's the purpose of these practices, to do it slowly and accurately for each note. That's not how you play the piano all the time, but this is a great place to just become more aware of your technique. You see a little bounces in between, yeah, because I have to go up to come down, up to come down. And going back to alignment and keeping your fingertip to the elbow as one unit. You don't want to have any broken joints, okay? You don't want your finger joint, whether this is this finger joint or this finger joint, to break. You want them to have slight curvature, and you don't want your knuckles to dip either. You want your knuckles to show a little, okay? So, and then if you see from the overhead camera, you're gonna see that my wrist moves with the finger that I'm playing, trying to get behind the finger that I'm playing. Okay, let's try D major, okay? This D major should feel really great because our third finger, which is the longest one usually, is on the black key. It's a little bit raised and it's shorter, and it kind of fits in your hand better. Okay, I am going to do, let's see, I'm gonna do E flat because I got questions about how do you do your fingering for the black keys. And yes, if you're playing the full scale, you would start with 3, right? Okay, but we're doing just 5-finger scales, and I just use the same fingering for this as well. And that's because this is the way to really understand the chords. I mean, if you learn this way, you're just gonna understand your theory much better. So I'm not gonna go into it, but this is how I make all my students practice. And there was a question about how to manage putting your finger in between the black keys. I have no problem putting my third finger in between the black keys like that. But I think there are people who, like, this just doesn't work for you. So let me show you how I do it. I just do it. Now, if you find that uncomfortable, then this is when you use the in and out movement, okay? It doesn't work perfectly for every situation, but that is one movement that many people are not aware of, and that's why they twist their hands a lot. And you can also apply this into a scale like B flat scale, right? There's, you know, mountains and valleys, right? So you can start your thumb here, okay? Try to align it. Don't just reach, okay? Try to align it. second finger, third finger, and then go in and then out. In, so we're applying three-dimensional movement. We're trying to maintain quiet hand, silent hand throughout our playing, and in between, whatever happens, come back to that restfulness. And by doing that, we're naturally playing with our finger pads, and we are keeping the alignment and support from the fingertips to our elbow. Okay, so I want you to practice this, all your 5-finger scales and all keys, and just go slowly. And this is why I wanted you to like memorize it and know it so well. If you're like, oh, which note am I supposed to be playing? Then you just don't have the bandwidth to think about your technique. So please memorize all of them, and I want you to apply this technique when you practice. So this is just the beginning of the technique. Next time I'm going to talk about the legato playing, which is more smoother playing. For that, you would be adding different kind of technique to it, but this is your foundation. And you may have played piano for years, and this might be your first time realizing some of these things. I mean, trust me, a lot of these things I didn't even know until I became a teacher. So even if you're an advanced player, this is where you can use a very simple scale or very simple piece that you know to work on healthy technique. So I wish you a happy and healthy new year with healthy piano technique to create beautiful sounds.